I am Pastor John Hildebrand. We want to continue our Bible study. This is lesson number 3. And in this lesson, we want to put the beasts that we talked about in the previous lesson, put them in numerical order. But before we do that, I want to spend a little bit of time in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. I want to read that verse again. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, and it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Now, I feel that the beginning is very important, because if we want to understand the eighth beast, or any beast for that matter, we must understand this. And I touched upon this in the previous lesson. So when you look at the world today, this is all you see. You see two different bodies of people. So when it talks about the seed of the serpent, it talks about a body of people that are following the serpent. I'll give you an example because I feel this is very important. When the serpent came to Eve, it was a mere temptation. That's all the devil can do. He can tempt. But he cannot force or take our members and make you do something. He can only tempt us in hopes that we'll obey and yield to the temptation. And that way he can work through us. So when the Bible talks about yielding our members to unrighteousness in Romans chapter 6, that's exactly what happens. So Satan comes to people, like he came to Eve, and then he says, he tempts Eve and he says, take of the fruit, disobey. So when a person obeys the devil and disobeys God, they're actually taking their members, their whole body, their mind, their hands, their mouth, their tongue, their intellect, they're giving it to the serpent. And so when you have a lot of people doing the same thing, soon you have a body. When you read in the Bible, in the New Testament, especially in the New Testament, often you find the people of God referred to as a body, the body of Christ. Why is it a body? Because it's a body of people that have given their life to God, to Jesus Christ. They have been born again, and by this body of people coming together into the Spirit of God, that creates, that's where you get the body of Jesus Christ. But it's the same is true for the devil. There are two different bodies. So from the very beginning, you have two bodies of people. The body of the people that held themselves and believed in the promise, believed God, obeyed God. It was a body of people, and that's why the Bible calls them a body. But the same is true here. All the people, see, this is just like you see a kind of a serpent style. It's a body. This body is people. So when we study the generation of the serpent, or any beast that we'll talk about, you are talking about a body of people that are rebellious against God. So this is very important. So next time when you read the Bible and you read about the different beasts, you know what you're reading about. When you look at any of the beasts for that matter, you're looking at a body. These are bodies of people that have obeyed the serpent, that have yielded their members to the devil, and that has formed a body. And so we see that body of sin, which we see in the beginning, this body of sin, we see that in different forms through time. For example, beast. This is another very important point that I want to make. When we read through the Bible often compares the just and the unjust, the righteous and the unrighteous, to beast. For example, we are like sheep in John chapter 10. Jesus called the Pharisees serpents. Jesus called Pharaoh a fox. Paul said when he was in Ephesus that he fought with beasts. So when we read the story where he was in Ephesus, was he actually fighting with like literal beasts, with dogs or lions or something? No. He was fighting people that were beastly minded. They were obeying the serpent. So if we get this right, it helps us, it makes the Bible a whole lot smaller. Because sometimes when we read about the Bible, it seems like the Bible talks about 1,000 things. It's not true. The Bible actually talks about only two things. It talks about the body of the people that are obeying God and the body of sin. The body of light, the children of light, the narrow way, and the body of people that are going the broad way. So when you look in the world today, we're in 2021 today, there's a whole world of, 7 billion people or more than that. You're looking at two bodies of people. So this is what you are looking at from the very beginning. It's just a little different in one sense because these bodies are probably more developed now than they were back then when it began. That's the only difference. So I want to start numbering the beast. So remember, or before we do that, I want to show you another chart, another picture here that I have. If we look in the bottom here, we have these two seeds. We have this seed, we see a cross in here, a seed, and we see a cross. It was a prophecy about Jesus Christ. Okay? On this side, we have a little serpent in this seed, and you see that both of them, they have like a whole, it's like a plant that grows. So just like a plant, when you plant a corn, a seed of corn, it begins by sprouting, and then it grows until it's full grown. That's exactly how these two seeds grew through time. It began by a prophecy, and then they developed through time. More and more was revealed in different time periods until we get to the time when the harvest of the earth is ripe. Just like when a farmer goes out into the field, he plants his crop, he puts the seed in the ground, and he comes back in whatever that is, 4 months, 5 months, whatever that is, he comes back and he has a crop full grown. It's time for harvest. That's exactly what we have in the Bible with the history of mankind. Okay, so we're going to be talking about this more as we go on. I want to remind you again, in the previous lecture, we read in Revelation chapter 17, verse 11. I'll just quickly refer to it, or maybe we'll read it. It talks about, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth. So we know that the Bible talks about 8 beasts. The number 8. So we know that before you get to the number 8, you have at least 7 that come before it. So when the Bible uses the number 8, we are to be able to find all the other 7. And where did it begin? So I'm going to start in the book of Daniel and show you that when the book of Revelation talks about 8 beasts, that it actually begins counting in the book of Daniel. So I will show you very soon, or maybe before we go to the book of Daniel, I just want to show you, just for reference sake, that the beast in Daniel and the beast in Revelation are connected. So these 4 are in Daniel, and these other ones are in the book of Revelation. But I'll just show you a reference just for those that would want to know, how can you start counting in the book of Daniel? I'll just show you one reference just to prove that they are connected. So in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, when John sees this beast, in verse 2 he says, and the beast which I saw was like a leopard. This is in the Revelation. It was like a leopard. That's the third beast in the Old Testament in the book of Daniel. And then he says, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, which is the second beast, and his mouth was as the mouth of a lion. So all I'm showing you here is just to simply prove that the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel are connected. So when the book of Revelation talks about 8 beasts, it actually starts counting in the book of Daniel. So that reference helps you to connect the book of Daniel to the book of Revelation, and that the beasts are connected. They start in Daniel and they end in Revelation. So Daniel chapter 7, and in verse 1, well, actually, probably not verse 1. This is where Daniel had a dream and visions. And so at verse 2, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. So we see the great sea behind here. And then it says, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. So 4 great beasts came out as the wind strove upon the great sea. Verse 4, very important. We want to make sure that we have a number for each beast and that we know where they belong. And then we'll explain what they are. We already know, as we heard, these are bodies of people, kingdoms. Verse 4, the first was like a lion. The first beast, the first of the 8 is a lion. So here we have a number. We're going to number 8. Here we have number 1, the lion. The Bible tells us that. I showed you that the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel are connected. All right, verse 5. And I beheld another beast, a second like a bear. So we have 2 of the 8 now, which is a bear. And then verse 6, and after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard. So another, after the second, means after number 2 comes number 3, which was a leopard, which is this one here. Later we'll explain what these are. But for now, I want to count them. And then in chapter 7, verse 7, and after this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a 4th beast. So now we have number 4. Dreadful and terrible. So he didn't really give it a name like a lion or a bear, but he just called it a dreadful and terrible. All right? So now we have 4 different beasts in the Old Testament where Revelation starts counting. And we'll see in the New Testament. So now I want to back up. I'm going to stop here. I want to talk about these beasts a little bit. This was the Babylonian kingdom, the Medo-Persian kingdom, the Grecian kingdom under Alexander the Great, and the Roman kingdom where Christ was born. So these are the 4 universal kingdoms in the Old Testament. So, from what we have learned, when you look at these beasts, what are they? Are they physical beasts? Like a bear, a lion? No. These are bodies of people. So when you look at the bodies that began in Genesis 3, this is just another way of showing that this is the body of sin. So when you look at the time of the Babylonian kingdom, you saw the whole body of sin as a lion, the body of the disobedient, the body of those that were going against the seed. In this time, it shows us it's like a lion. So when you read about that beast, you're not talking about a literal lion. You're talking about a body of people. This is the Babylonian kingdom, which was the first universal, organized universal kingdom in the world, the first one ever. That's why it begins with the lion. Some people think it starts counting in Egypt and Assyria and whatnot. The Bible doesn't do that. From the beginning, where the serpent tempted Eve, until the Babylonian kingdom, that's when finally an organized universal kingdom existed in the world. So it took all the way from the Garden of Eden all the way to the Babylonian kingdom, where we had the first universal kingdom. It was developed. This is exactly the same as the head of gold. So in the next lesson, we'll continue counting the beast and show what they are and where they belong. May the Lord bless you.